So yeah, this video is unusual for me. Obviously, I do my kind of character ones every month, and the one I've done, I've actually filmed it and edited it, and then decided might wait till later in the year. I mean, this is all boring stuff, but yeah, there's a reason I'm waiting for it. But yeah, so I thought I'm not very good at being one of them people who just wings it, who just picks up some fragrances and makes stuff up. So what I've gone for is this idea about scenting TV through my life, if you like. So there are a few kind of omissions. I've not put Star Treks in and stuff. I try not to talk too much about programs that I've already spoken a lot about, but kind of important TV things that are shows that I remember through my life, starting from being a little kid to modern days, really. It's not an overcomplicated one, don't need to waffle on. So yeah. So first, in my my days of youth, one of the first programs I remember watching and loving as a kid was called The Raccoons. This was a story about some raccoons that loved an adventure. Was his name Ben? Possibly, something like that was kind of the main kind of character whose journeys and whatnot we followed. However, the main kind of protagonist, if you like, the sort of, I don't think he was a bad guy, he was just a guy who liked lots of money, was the what was he, an aardvark, wasn't he, I think, Cyril Sneer, and he was quite a grumpy old geezer. He was like, I'm Cyril Sneer, and he had like a nose like that, and he had a dog with a nose like that as well, actually. And did he have a nephew or a son who was not quite as bad as he was? But yeah, Cyril Sneer. I think we all, of a certain age, probably remember the raccoons. Was it Canadian? They had weird accents anyway when I was a child, obviously. And just followed the adventures of what went on there and Cyril Sneer's mischief. Now, what I've picked for Cyril Sneer, because he's the character I'll go for from it, is Fawn from Thomas O'Brien. I know, starting with an indie one, but it kind of suits him because they did live, well, actually Cyril Sneer lived in a big posh house, as I remember, but they did kind of live in the forest area, obviously, being, did I call him an avocado? No, I didn't, an aardvark, and raccoons and stuff. So it's kind of got that mischievous forest thing, and he is quite mischievous, and I imagined he did smell quite green and damp and moist as he was walking through the forest floors and whatnot. So yeah, not going to go on and on and on with these. For Cyril Sneer from the Raccoons, I've gone for Thomas O'Brien's Fawn. Next is one of them programs I never missed an episode of. I think it's something we used to watch every day. May even have watched it at school. And that's Rainbow. Now, looking back at this, I'm not going to go into this. Just watch a clip on YouTube and make your own mind up about it. But maybe it explains why a lot of millennials in this country are so open-minded and kind of, open to new possibilities and different lifestyles and different sorts of people. And no, before someone says it wasn't brainwashing or whatever, so whatever. But yes, in Rainbow there was four main characters. There was Zippy, who's the person I've got to scent, who was like he was like a guy with a zip across his face. Then there was Bungle, who was the big bear, and then there was George, who was a pink hippo, oh George. And there was the guy, Rod, Jane and Freddie. Was he? Oh God, why have I forgot the guy? The guy doesn't matter, he's irrelevant. But yeah, Zippy was kind of, well, again, the mischievous one. He was the one who was always naughty. He was a bit spoilt. Oh, I want the toys, I want to play. They all talk like that, by the way. But yeah, he always wanted his own way, and he was quite stroppy and naughty. A bit like Sweep from Sooty and Sweep, you know, he's got that kind of same me kind of thing. And I think I admired him quite a lot as a child, because I was a very good child. I didn't get up to mischief, but there was something kind of addictive about him. You're going to have to watch it to understand what the heck I'm going on about here. And what I've picked for Zippy is Tuscan leather from Tom Ford. Now this is a naughty leather. This is it's, you know, leather, raspberries, kind of the greener elements of it. It smells a bit like some sort of raunchy event somewhere you know you might go for more adult activities, perhaps. And it's because just look at Zippy and you'll understand. I mean, there'll probably be a picture or two in here. You'll understand why I've picked this fragrance. Obviously you don't see that as a kid. I wonder how many adults saw that as well. But so that's Zippy from Rainbow. Yeah, got mauled by a small dog there. So yeah, Zippy from Rainbow is Tom Ford's Tuscan leather. Now, as a kid of the 80s, the things we watched on telly were quite limited, and you kind of had to watch what was on. But I must admit, I was a massive fan of the A-Team. I used to have a little van. My favourite character is actually Murdoch, but I'm gonna send BA. But if you haven't seen the A-Team, they were like a crack squad of wrongly convicted criminals serving on the side of justice, and I can't remember the words of the thing, but yeah, there were 4 blokes getting shot at. I mean, they must have been shot about 50,000 times and never had a scratch on them. It was very American nonsense. My kind of early introduction to that sort of weird nonsensical gun culture and over the top violence. And then there was Face, who was kind of the smooth, charming, probably a Me Too moment one. And there was Hannibal, he was kind of the cool leader, smoked cigars that were never lit, and he was kind of the leader. Murdoch was escaped from a mental institution. He was quite bonkers. Dwight Schultz played him. He seems to play a similar character in whatever he's in. And then BA, who was it? Yeah, BA Baracus. Wow. Now he's to anyone again of our age, he's certainly an icon of that era. With his he had his little mohawk and his beard and his 455,000 gold chains, like he'd just robbed a jewellery store, and his gold rings and that. I pity the fool, I pity the fool. And he was kind of he was the strong man, but he of course was scared of flying, so he used to have to knock him out. Yeah, it was nonsensical nonsense, really. And what I've picked for BA is Lamar from Kajal Fragrances, primarily because it's in a big gold blingy bottle, but also it's probably something he'd quite like. It's quite bougie. It's sweet pineapple and sweet fruits. It's really quite sumptuous and quite gorgeous, actually. It's one for a kind of colder day, but it does smell of, like, you know, an Arabian palace of fruits and things like that. It's quite a magnificent fragrance. So yeah, for BA Baracus is Lamar from Kajal Fragrance. Now, as a child of my time and my era, one of the first soap operas I saw back when I was a kid, which I watched all the way through university as well, actually. I kind of watched it till they switched channels, and then it's, oh yeah, But anyway, it's Neighbours, which was an Australian soap set in a fictional street of Ramsay Street. Now there are so many famous people to come from this soap opera. Nowadays, superstars like Guy Pearce, Margot Robbie, but there's other Jason Donovan, Kylie Minogue, Stephen Dennis. Oh God, what's his name? The guy who played Paul Daniels. He's in loads of stuff like Lost, and he always plays some dodgy bad guy. There are just countless people who started in Neighbours, and obviously it was basically just about all, you know, like a soap opera, people's everyday lives. There are lots of affairs, dodgy goings on, romance, you know, all that sort of thing. And it's with it being Australian, I'm nothing against Australians, by the way, but it was quite light-hearted. And you know, if you watch a British soap, they're terrible, grim, and ridiculous. There was none of that in my day with Neighbours. Anyway, it was quite innocent and amusing, I suppose, to look back. Anyway, I picked Kylie, who was played Charlene in it. Now, she ended up getting married to Scott, who was Jason Donovan, and hence the song Especially For You and things like that. And anyway, she left eventually, but she's like the person who's stayed the longest in our lives, if you get what I mean. I don't know if Kylie's big across the water or anywhere else that's not the UK, but she's like, she's someone we've all grown up with here, and we all absolutely love her. And she is unbelievably, fantastically talented. Actually, a great singer. She's not actually Australian. I believe she was born in Wales, or her parents are Welsh or whatever. She had a sister who might have been in Neighbours as well, actually. I can't remember. No, was she in Home and Away? Danny Minogue, who was not quite as charming or talented, let's say. Anyway, what I've picked for Kylie, even though the fragrance didn't exist when she was in her heyday, it's Cloud from Ariana Grande, because it's also, and we know it's not really Baccarat Rouge, but it's got that kind of similarity, and it's got whipped cream and all that jazz in it, and it's fun and it's friendly and it's likeable. I mean, yeah, maybe you grow out of it, but you still like it and look back at it with a kind of nostalgic thing. It's sweet, it's fluffy. Yeah, and that's a lot like Kylie, really. So for Kylie Minogue, Charlene from Neighbours, I have picked Ariana Grande's Cloud. Next is one I've actually done a video about, so I won't waffle on too much, is The X-Files. It had to be in here because it was, you know, it was a defining TV show of my era, and obviously it's greatly influenced me and my personality and stuff, I suppose. And obviously I'm going to go for Mulder. Now, X-Files was basically a show about FBI investigators of unexplained phenomena. Now, you know, even when we're older, we're all kind of fascinated by this and what's hidden from us from the government, and unexplained things are always exciting. They don't necessarily have to be supernatural, do they? They just, you know, why did this happen? Some have perfectly good logical explanations, some have X-Files explanations, but it was good, and again, it opens your mind to think, and it also, you know, got some of us with conspiracy theory tendencies to overthink things, and yeah, did it help make my mind up about aliens in them days? Not really, and that's one of the things about the X-Files that's kind of clever, because there's never really a proper explanation. It never really gets solved. It could go one way or the other. They could be real, it could be government experiments, etc. Maybe they are hiding them and stuff. Personally, I believe there is life in the universe, but we've never met it, and we never will, because the space, you know, the space between places, and the kind of, you got to think, we've been about for 14 billion years, the universe. The chances of two civilizations existing at the same time they're quite slim and that. So, you know, humanity's what, 90,000 years old? Will it make it to 100,000 years old? I very much doubt it somewhat. So, you know, things are going to... Anyway, what the heck am I talking about? Mulder, he's kind of the main guy. I mean, I think Scully is more, but Mulder's kind of the leader of the show at first, if you like. And he's funny, he's charming. He's a bit of an overthinker. He never believes anything. He's kind of a bit rebellious and a bit daft at times. And he's charming side of that. And I think for him, I've picked an amouage, but I've picked the most kind of easygoing, simple, friendly one. And that's Reflection Man. And I do think it's something actually he would wear, because it's you know, it's easygoing, it's lovely, it's like aromatic, a bit of iris, a bit of a lot of jasmine. It's very clean, it's very crisp white shirt, it's very approachable and friendly. And yeah, I think that suits Mulder perfectly fine. So that's Amouage's Reflection for Mulder. The next kind of iconic show in my life, I think we all knew this was coming, I've done a video about this as well, is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now there's so much about this. This is one of the greatest shows that have ever been made, and I know there's been some besmirching of it recently, and you know, the creator perhaps not being the nicest of chaps, we'll just put it that way. But that can't possibly take away from what it stood for and what it was all about. How the hell is there a cart down here? Oh, seriously. Anyway, yeah, it was about a journey into adulthood and all the things that you go through. And it was, I mean, I'm a man, but I'd say it was quite a big deal for the life of a young woman and all the things that they have to go through and change. And also, little Star Trek in a funny kind of way. It opened the mind to different lifestyles, different ideas. The monsters were more metaphorical, representing different things we go through in our life, and that the worst monster of them all was a human, and there was no kind of, you know, Buffy goes through a lot and grows up, and it's all being part of her friends and all the influences in her life, and to succeed, even though she's a superhero kind of thing, she's nothing without the people round her who make her this. There's so much. I could, you know, I wrote an essay about this at university, so I could literally talk for 2-3 hours about everything in Buffy. Anyway, so obviously I've got to pick Buffy from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now she's kind of, like I say, she's a strong kind of leader. She's funny. She's also has the same kind of trials and tribulations that a young person would go through, and that, you know, she's perfectly normal, boyfriends, boys and all of that. Anyway, what I've picked for her actually is again to do with the name more, and that's Hush Hush from 4160 Tuesdays and Smurfy Girly. Now the reason this jumped out straight away for me is the name. There is an episode called Hush, which is about these demons, monsters that come and steal everyone's voice and put them all in a box as they go around kind of terrorising town. And the box needs a princess to smash it open, which is, you know, fairy tale nonsense, but it is Buffy obviously. And she has to scream in it, yeah, whatever. It's all done. Now the fragrance itself is kind of an ode to a little bit of Claire's youth as flapper girls and stuff, but also you know, them little chocolate cigarettes we used to get in things, and Parma Violets and sweets are kind of, they were tobacco shops that sold sweets actually, back in our youth, and these little chocolate cigarettes were quite lovely and they had a very specific smell. And then there's the violet and whatnot, and there's also like a little bit in the opening of like a throat lozenge, like honey and lemon and stuff, which is gorgeous, and again takes you back to be youthful. And I just think, because Buffy takes me back to not being as young as that when I was eating them, but it takes me back in time, and the name and everything, and the fact it's a nostalgic scent for a nostalgic TV show. So for Buffy is Hush Hush from 4160 Tuesdays on Smurfy. Next is Lost. Lost was another iconic show, probably one of the first really massive ones that everyone watched every week, and it was the reason I got Sky TV. At one point it started on Channel 4, and bloody Sky got it. So yeah, I watched it religiously all them years. It's absolutely fantastic. Sometimes it goes a bit here and there, and it's basically about these people who crash on an island, and I've done a video about this, and all the things they go through. It's quite a kind of, it's an island that's between life and death, and there's people who already lived there. It kind of is a real island, but it isn't, and it is, but it isn't. And the ending, I think it was 7-8 years of my entire life getting up very early one morning to watch the conclusion, the very last episode before work, and I mean like 4 o'clock or something, and then having to go to work after watching that and getting up that early. Oh, I mean, really, what were they doing? It's kind of purgatory, and no, you just ran out of ideas and you just ruined all the brilliance and wonder and mysticism in it and that. And it's another one of them shows where I think the writers just aren't, well, it's J.J. Abrams, wasn't it? But where they kind of just, I don't know if they get bored or whatever, because I'm looking at Game of Thrones here, which may come up later. And they just kind of, there's all these there's loads of signs, the last season, you go more into the kind of history of the island and the history of the more important characters in it, like Jacob and Anti-Jacob and stuff. And it was just rushed through, and all the symbols, all the statues, all the things, it's just kind of, screw it, we'll not bother with that. Whereas people like me who watch these things, they're the best bits, all the kind of hidden messages and the history and the ancient kind of mysticism of things. And yeah, they just kind of whatever, cut that out. Anyway, the person I picked from Lost, I'm still bitter, and I'll be bitter till the day I die. I think again it could be something that could be remade and not ending ridiculously. But I picked Saeed. Now Saeed is a very complicated character. He is kind of a guy with a big heart and a good guy, but he was a guy that was forced by an invading force into his country, Iraq, to become some sort of torturer and not very pleasant person. And he was used by his own people. He was then used by the invading American force, and so Saeed's got a great darkness about him, despite being a lovely, honourable, decent guy. He's just really interesting and complex, and yeah, I liked him a lot. And what I've picked for him is The Night from Frederick Malle. Now this is the sort of fragrance he'd wear, definitely, not just because he's Middle Eastern, it's because he's very posh and it's very mysterious kind of one. It's primarily oud and rose. There's a lot more going on in there. The rose it's not an oud and it's not, it's all blended together with these kind of insanely incredible ouds. You do have a kind of slight animalic funk for a little bit, but then it's just all these woody, beautiful facets, like the best oud you've ever smelt and stuff. Now, I don't know much about Frederick Malle. I would imagine there's real oud in this for the price. You'd hope so. But it's all these different facets of it, all these different kind of woody, beautiful levels, and it goes on a journey where it gets more and more elegant, and there's resinousness in there. There's like a soft sweetness in the base. The oud is delicate, and it's just very, very, very classy. One of the best I have ever smelt. I've not smelt loads of fragrances and stuff, and if I ever win the lottery I will buy a bottle of it. But yeah, I think it suits Saeed. So The Night from Frederick Malle for Saeed from. Now I find myself, this video is going to be too long, so I'm going to try and speed it up. Game of Thrones is next. Now I watched the first season and then bought all the books, went through the books, and then the last books came out, I think just as the second season maybe came out. So I read through them all very quickly actually. Loved it. Reading, it was just, it's some of the best books you'll ever read. The show, well, now George R.R. Martin's involved in it, not doing any writing, because it's not like he's a writer or anything. It sticks good, and they put in their own little twists and things that aren't in the books. So actually pretty brilliant in the first few seasons, which kind of suggest, was it all their idea, or was George kind of involved in that? I suspect he was. And then when the book material finishes, Game of Thrones turns into a pile of garbage. Now, it's one of them that we're all angry about. You know it, you've seen it. The ending does make sense, but not how they got to the ending, if you get what I mean. There's loads of things that are left unexplained. The main kind of protagonists in it, the White Walkers, just there's no explanation to who they are, what they're doing, why they're there. It's just gone, it's finished, let's move on. Completely rushed through it. They really did. It's an insult, and it's an insult to everyone who enjoyed the show. Nobody could be satisfied with the way they ended it. Like two monkeys scribbling with a wax crayon on a toilet floor for that matter. Just terrible. But there's so many great characters. Obviously, again, George, so many wonderful things in it, and it's not all the magic and stuff like that. There's a bit of that kind of fantasy element and stuff, and you can see what's influenced him as things like Lord of the Rings and stuff. It's just brilliant. There's politics, there's lots of intertwining stories, there's the magic, the mysticism, the ancient religions, the philosophies. It's fantastic. But yeah, I'm not going to waffle on about anymore. We know what Game of Thrones is, and how it was ruined by these complete clowns who rushed it because they had a deal to write some Star Wars films, didn't they, I believe? And in the end that contract was withdrawn from them, rightly so. Anyway, my favourite character in Game of Thrones, there's a few. We're going to go for Varys, because Varys is kind of, if you like, he is Game of Thrones, isn't he, really? He's the one who's there he's behind the scenes pulling the levers. He is in the books as well, and he's portrayed brilliantly by the actor who plays him in the show, and he's just a very kind of, not everything is completely unselfish, and you could see him as a little bit of a bad guy by having so much power behind the thing and wanting to shape the things how he wants it. In the books it's a lot more complicated, and he's more behind a character that doesn't exist in the shows, but you'll have to wait and see. And what I've gone for Varys is Missia from Chanel, because it would just suit him. Apparently you could quite often smell him and his perfumed flowers and stuff like that, and I think something like Missia, where it's soft powdery florals and whatnot, would very much suit him. I'm not going to go into Varys. Again, I could talk for hours about him, but for Varys from Game of Thrones is Missia. Now the more recent things, I'll try and whip through these really quick. Stranger Things. Now, I think again we've all seen Stranger Things. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Kind of fantasy set in the 80s with that kind of 80s vibe. It's very much got a lot of what we'd have watched as kids about it, and it's actually quite intense sometimes. The characters are absolutely fantastic. Not a big fan of kind of the main person, 11, L, and yeah, I'm not going to go into it. We know what Stranger Things is. It's fantasies, it's all these things happening in this town, kind of similar to Buffy, whereas the same-ish thing as a Hellmouth, if you like. It's kind of a cut to another kind of parallel universe as such. The Upside Down. Anyway, like I said, I'm not going to go. People know it. People might not have seen all of them yet either, so no spoilers. Well, my favourite character from that is Max. She's not in the first season, I don't think, actually. But she's kind of some bad girl who's come from a very bad background. She's had some terrible stuff happen to her. She loses her brother and stuff. But she's very strong, she's very funny. She's very kind of cool and hip as well. And she's just very likeable as a character, and she does develop. And she has different difficult decisions to make, but she's ultimately very protective of the people she cares about and that. And she's not as dull as Elle, really. And there's just so many. Justin, you know, we could have picked as anyway. We're not going to go into all the characters. I'm going to be very quick. What I've picked for her is Dior's Poison, and that's because it's of that time, and she would have wore something like that, despite being whatever she's supposed to be in it. She's supposed to be like 19 or whatever. I've no idea, but she would have wore Dior Poison, because it's very cool. It's very kind of statement making. It's a little bit naughty and dark, and it's got, well, we know what poison is. It's very stringent. It's very out there. It's very bold, and I just think it's the sort of thing that she would have wore. So for Max from Stranger Things is Dior's. Now again, I'm going to skip through these last two very quickly. Squid Games, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, show Netflix had for, was it on Netflix? Yeah, I think it was, for a long time. Utterly brilliant. Korean, wasn't it? It's about these kind of down and outs people who are chose from society to go perform for rich people. There's a lot. I'm not going to get into all the kind of everything about it and all the kind of levels and what it's really about and etc, etc. But the point is, Ji-hun is he's the main guy in it. He's kind of the hero, if you like. He's the one who wins in the end as well. But he's kind of a guy who's had a miserable life. He's in loads of debt. He gets himself into loads of mess and stuff. He has to make some terrible decisions throughout it as well. He tries not to be selfish or awful. He doesn't really want to go back, but his mum needs. Oh, I'm not going to go it because you might not have seen it again. But yeah, he does it ultimately in the end for his mum, not for his own selfish kind of reasons, and it makes him perhaps more determined. Although again, he really struggles with doing certain things, and he has to basically kill one of his friends, I suppose. Well, who he thinks is one of his friends. No spoilers. And he's a character. He's a little, I suppose what we call him over here is a Del Boy. He's a little bit of a wheeler dealer. He's a little bit full of the old mouth excretions. Is that polite enough? And he's very likable and what have you. And he's just trying to do what's right. Again, watch Squid Games. I've paid literally no justice to anything what it's about. Just about, well, it's going through children's games, but in a kind of menacing way. So what did I pick for him as a fragrance? Well, because he's quite a wily person, I've gone for Dupont. Because it is the sort of thing he'd wear. He'd pick up something cheap, he'd spray it on just to smell good, to kind of stand out and be kind of popular and brilliant and easy. He wouldn't need to think about things like this. He wouldn't really be bothered. So for Ji-hun is Dupont from Squid Game. Finally, this came before Squid Games, but the second, whatever, is Alice in Borderland. This is one of my favourite things I have watched for a decade. I don't know, I might like this more than I do like it more than the Game of Thrones show. It's basically, it's Japanese. And again, no spoilers. You don't know though, because they are going to make a third season. You think you get an explanation at the end of it. It's based on a manga thing. maybe you got the explanation, maybe you didn't. So I'm not gonna go through too much of it, but basically it's these people who wake up and find themselves in the same world they live in, but nobody's there. And it's all these kind of games of life and death, and things that they need to beat certain boss guys to get out of each thing, and to get towards the end. And it's the cards, so they have to beat card characters who have specific levels of whatever. I'm not going to go too much into it. And is it Aisu? Which I believe, is it Japanese? Something to do, it's related to Alice, but he's kind of the main guy. And he's the main guy because you kind of find out, well, the end of the season. Arisu, that's it. You find out at the end of it all that maybe it's a lot to do with him. We'll see. But they're all named after Alice in Wonderland characters as well. They've all got some sort of relations. I think my favourite person is the weird one with the white hair. I can't remember his name off the top of my head now. He's kind of smooth but a bit weird, a bit aloof. But he's always watching and understanding what's going on and that. And then my favourite kind of bad person was the Queen of Hearts, who appears in it twice actually. But she's quite brilliant as well. But Arisu is, again, he's noble. Gets a bit sick of it. He loses all of his friends quite early on, and he's quite sad and sullen and what have you. But anyway, what I picked for him is an obvious one: Lost Alice from Milano, which is representative of the show more than that. It's kind of the tea and cake and things like that were with the Mad Hatter. And that's kind of an allegory of what the show is. It's kind of been at the Mad Hatter's table and all sorts of crazy, out there, wild, extreme things happening. Again, I've not spoke a lot about this. Go watch it. I don't have time to go through it. I'll probably end up doing a whole video on this one because it's one of the best. And the characters in it are all fantastic. And the kind of, again, shades of grey, nothing's black and white. The bad people are forced into being that. It's just really interesting. Anyway, that is Alice through the Borderland, and Arisu, who would wear Lost Alice from Milano. Okay, what I've realised is this was too hard to do. I'll still stick it out, but not being able to talk about the shows for very long, especially the last few, doesn't give much of a kind of indication to people who haven't watched these things before. If you've watched them before, you'll kind of get why I've picked certain things and what the show's about more. But yeah, it just shows I've got an awful lot of them character videos to come. This was just a bit of fun, like I say. Obviously I'd planned who I was going to talk about, but not thought too much about each of the things, and there's so many more shows, like I say, the Star Treks, Disenchantment, which I've got into recently, leading to The Simpsons was obviously a part of my, there's so many TV shows, isn't there? Anyway, if anyone's still awake and what have you, that was iconic TV shows through my life and scenting some of the main characters. So what about you? What TV shows kind of are pivotal and important and iconic in your life? What were your favourites? How would you scent them? Did you watch any of the same shows as me? Especially if you're in America, do you think we were smoking things back in my childhood with some of the shows we were watching? Oh, we had some crazy shows. Alright, yeah, thanks folks. Bye.